Hi, I'm Dave McKee. We're at the Federation of Fly Fishers, and the pattern I'm going to tie is basically a Bow River bugger, although I've improvised it a little bit to make it a little more suitable for the carp fishing that I do around here. So there'll be a few little adjustments to it, but basically the Bow River bugger is a real common trout fly streamer, and it is more or less a woolly bugger with a spun deer hair head on it, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on that and show you basically how it's done. The hook that I'm going to use for this is a Tiemco 93-95, which is a really stout long shank streamer hook, and it works great for the carp, but like I said before, it's also a great trout hook as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the hook in the vise, of course, get it in there nice and firm. And then I'm going to add a little bit of weight to it. One of the reasons that I really like this fly is that for the carp fishing that I like to do on the Missouri River particularly, the carp really like big flies, but the problem with a lot of the big streamer flies is that they sink far too quickly to fish in shallow water. So this is a buoyant pattern because of the deer hair, and it has a big silhouette and the fish really like it. I am going to put a little bit of weight on here to help get it down some, but this really won't, on a typical 1X or odd X leader that I usually use, won't get it to sink much more than a couple inches in the time frame that I'm using to fish it. So I'm going to put some lead wire on the back 2/3 of the hook here, just like so. As you can see, there's not a lot, and I'm making sure that I leave plenty of room up in the front to spin my deer hair head. And then I'm using flat wax nylon, which is a good strong thread, and I'm going to go ahead and secure this lead right into place, just like so. Okay. Now basically what we're going to do from here is tie a woolly bugger on the back part of this hook. I'm going to find a nice feather here, and what I typically like to do is take the feather, the whole thing, and pull it down so I've got the tail just right there in my hand, and I'll place it right on the hook. Now I'm going to have this tail relatively long because I want this fly to be big, and I'm going to go ahead and secure that on there just like that. Clip that off, tie down marabou, neaten that up. And the next step is I'm going to take some blue flashabou, and I prefer this to the crystal flash because it's a little softer and has a little more action in the water. Not quite as stiff as the crystal flash. So I've got, 4 or 5 strands of this right here. I'm going to go ahead and tie that first on my side of the hook right next to the tail. I'll do a few wraps forward. Then I'm going to take the butt ends, which you can see here, and I'm going to pull them to the other side of the fly, and presumably they will be going right down the far side of that tail there. So now I've got the black and I've got some flash in there. Now this is one of the parts that I do to make this real helpful as a carp fly, is that instead of just leaving the tail black, I'm going to put some white marabou on top, and that is simply to help me see the fly in the shallower water when I'm fishing for these carp, because it's all sight fishing, and it's really important to have the ability to see your fly in relation to the fish, and helps you know how to strip it and work the fly. So by putting a little bit of white marabou on top, that's going to really make this fly visible. So I'm going to put that right on top of the rest there, and I'm going to secure it into place as well. Okay. So now we have our tail. We've got the black marabou, we've got some blue flashabou in there, and then some white on top. Okay, now the next step is I'm going to put my rib in, which is just simply some copper wire. Color is not important at all. I just have the regular copper here. Size is not important either. I'm going to go ahead and just tie that right in there real securely. So now I have that sticking out the back. Okay. So the next step is putting in the hackle, which I just have a nice grizzly saddle hackle right here. The fibers on this aren't particularly soft. They're not really great for a dry fly, but they're somewhere in the middle and make for good stiff hackle that's going to stick out of this body. Okay, now what I'm going to do with this is tie it in tip first. And the way I like to do that so it doesn't get bound down is I'll hold the tip of the feather and pull the fibers down so that I have a nice place to tie this in without binding down the fibers when I wrap it forward. So it's going to be sticking right out the back there. I'll trim the tag end off. And now I'm going to put a dark olive body on there. And once again, the colors of this, these are the colors that I've had the best success with, but black would work well for a body, brown would be fine. You could do tails that would match the body. Any number of different things. Variegated chenilles make great bodies. So I've just tied the chenille in at the back. Now I'm going to move my thread forward. And I'm leaving plenty of room still up in the front to spin my deer hair head. Okay, so now I'm going to take this chenille and I'm just going to wrap this forward. And I've done my best underneath here to keep this body just all about the same diameter, so that way I won't have a big lumpy body when I wrap this chenille. And the fish could care less about that, but it makes the fly look nicer in the end. So now I've wrapped this forward. I'm going to tie it off. Tighten this vise up. Okay, the next step is that I'm going to wrap this grizzly hackle forward through the body. I spread them out, the wraps about 1/8, 3/16 of an inch maybe, all the way up to where the deer hair is going to be spun. I'm going to tie that off. Now I still have my copper wire right here, which I'm going to use for a rib, and this is essentially just to put on here to toughen the fly up a little bit. Now I wrapped the hackle clockwise. I'm going to counter wrap with the wire, which is basically going the opposite direction, and this will cross over the wraps of hackle and simply make it a much more durable fly. That's the only reason I have that on there. Okay, so now you can see that basically this is just a black and white tailed woolly bugger, olive body with a grizzly hackle on it. And now I'm going to add the deer hair head, which is what makes this such a great fly for fishing shallow water, because this deer hair head is very buoyant and works real well for that circumstance. Okay, so I have a ratty old piece of deer hair here, which will work just fine. And I'm going to cut off a nice chunk of it here, and I am going to stack the first bits of it. I'll put those tips down in the stacker. Bang that on the table, and all these tips should be nicely stacked right like that. Okay, now I'm going to put these so they are probably 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit less, down the body. And I'm going to simply do a nice wrap or two on top and hold it securely in place there, firmly in place. And then I'm going to let go and just kind of let it spin around, just like so. Okay, now it doesn't totally fill in everywhere. That one worked out pretty well, but a lot of times there'll be gaps in there, and there's a little bit of one on top. And so what I can do is simply take some more deer hair. I'll stack this once again. And I'll simply fill in the gap with another bunch. And if you want to kind of keep it in the same general spot you can more or less hold it, and just do nice firm wraps. This is where the flat wax nylon is handy. It doesn't break very easily if you pull on it hard, but it won't tend to cut the thread either. I've used Kevlar threads and things like that. They like to cut the hair. Okay, so now I have a nice collar around the back here, and then all the butt ends sticking forward. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to really pack that in. I'm going to put my fingers behind the spun hair and fingers in front of it, my fingernails, and push it together and really pack it in there. Okay, and I'll do a couple wraps right in front, try to train the hair back so it doesn't get in the way, and I'm going to get another bunch. And I'll stack that. And simply place it right in front of the other hair, do a wrap or two around it, and then let it spin. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to really pack that tight, move my thread up through it and in front of it. And it looks like I have room for another bunch. You can do as many of these bunches as you want. If you do big ones, then you won't have to do as many. Small ones, of course, you'll have to do a lot. Makes no difference. So there's some more hair. Stack it. It's actually not necessary to stack it right there because I don't need to have perfect tips at this point. That this will be all clipped here. Okay. Now I've got just enough room left on there, probably about 1/8 of an inch or so, that I'm going to add some white deer hair. And once again, this is the same concept as the white tail. I'm putting a little bit of white deer hair in the front just as a visible aid for me to be able to see this when it's in the water. So I've just got some nice dyed or bleached deer belly hair here. I've got just a nice bunch of it there. People often say to grab a bunch about the diameter of a pencil. It's not quite that. That probably seems like a little bit much, but it's a good chunk of it. Okay, now I'm going to just place this right in front of the natural hair and simply spin that around. Once again, I can look on here and see if there's areas that kind of are lacking, and looks like there's some right there. So I'm going to get a little bit more and fill that in. And I can just simply put it right in there, snug it up, and it should stay right where we want it. Okay. Now I'm going to simply pack this once again and do my best to train that hair back and make a small little head right in the front. I've got that on there. And now I will whip finish it and we'll trim the head. Should be all set. And while you're whip finishing, you may get a bunch of hair that goes right through the knot, but that's okay. We'll just trim that. Okay. So there we have the rough version. Now we'll trim it up and make it look right. Okay, so the way that I have found it seems to work best as far as trimming these is to go from the back towards the front, going against the grain of the hair. And I typically like to trim it on the top and the bottom first to give myself a good guide. I'm going to make sure that I don't trim off the nice tips that I stacked earlier. I want to leave those on there. I'm going to trim the bottom nice and short. Make a nice big mess here. So now we've got the top and the bottom trimmed. And what I want to do is take the sides and trim those off. And I like to leave it nice and big. I'll take that once again against the grain. Go in here and neaten it up around the eye. Okay, so now we have the basic shape, just with a few stragglers. And we'll go around and neaten it up a little bit. Once again, the shape is not critical. The bigger you leave it, the more buoyant this fly will be. You could trim it up nice and tight, and it would definitely sink quicker. And basically, there we have it. There is the carp version of the Bow River bugger right there. I've used this a lot for trout fishing as well, and it works extremely well, particularly if you put a split shot or two just a couple inches in front of the fly. It really makes it jig, and the fly continues to want to float, and when you strip it, it pulls it down, and fish really like it. There you have it.